This story starts with a husband laughing in a bar, his friends cheering as he announced he is divorcing the wife who funded his entire life. But Brenda does not break. She smiles, checks her phone, and cancels the card he was about to use for Lindis Condris, the sheriff at the door. Then come the change locks, the trash bags on the curb, the sheriff at the door, and the courtroom where Gary says dream of taking half her empire collapses. He wanted freedom. What he got was $20,000 in his mother Esmodin basement.
My husband FaceTimed me while I filed for divorce. His buddies were whooping. I cut in. Linda is laughing? Cute. She has no clue you used our joint card for her apartment deposit, which I just cancelled. Hi, everyone. Thrilled you are here. Grab a drink and comment below. Let us get into it. I was at my design firm, scanning a blueprint that felt off. The structure was solid, but the flow? Completely wrong. It mirrored my life. Strong outside, crumbling within. Afternoon sun cut through the blinds, casting long shadows across my desk. It was dead silent, the kind of quiet you earn after 30 years of grinding. Then my phone shattered the peace. A call from my husband. Mark. My gut twisted. He never did video calls. Mark was a guy who stuck to grunts and texts since he quit his sales job. I tapped the button, expecting him to ask about a lost sweater or demand his favorite beer. Instead, a neon-soaked blur and the roar of a dive bar filled the screen. The camera was propped against a picture, aiming at his flushed face. But I heard him fine. She picked up. She actually picked up. Mark sounded drunk, arrogant, and frankly pathetic. Hey, Brenda, you there? Got the boys here. And Linda, my best friend of 2 decades. My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. I am here, Mark. I did not yell. I just watched. The view shifted. I saw his deadbeat drinking buddies, guys who had not worked in ages, and there, leaning in with a glassy giggle, was Linda. She waved, fluttering her fingers like she was greeting a fan, not the woman whose husband she was currently draped over. Celebrating, Brenda, Mark shouted over the music. Celebrating our freedom. Freedom? I leaned back in my leather chair. Ice settled in my veins, that is right. I am at the lawyer's office. Well, we just left, Mark laughed, clinking his glass against Linda's. I told him to draft it up. Finalizing the divorce, babe. Done with the nagging. Done with you hoarding the cash. I need a woman who knows how to have fun, not one who treats me like staff. The table erupted in laughter. Linda covered her mouth, faking shock, but her eyes glittered with malice. Oh, Mark, stop it! She purred, pressing closer. I am serious? Mark yelled at my phone like I was a heckler. I am taking half, Brenda. Half the firm. Half the house. Half the savings. And I am spending it on a life that does not smell like blueprints. Consider this your notice. You are fired from being my wife. The laughter grew uglier. It shattered 25 years of marriage, of me paying his debts, holding his hand through grief, and building a life so he could stand on top of it and spit down. He expected tears. He expected me to shatter. He had no clue who he was dealing with. While he played big shot with cheap beer, I had been busy. He knew nothing about the forensic accountant I hired. He knew nothing about the emails currently lighting up my screen. I took a breath. The blueprint on my desk finally made sense. I knew exactly which wall needed to come down. Mark, I said. My voice was not loud, but it sliced through the noise like a diamond. Before you celebrate too hard, and before you sign a single thing, I paused. His smug grin faltered. The laughter died down as the mood shifted. What? He sneered. You going to beg me to stay? No, I said. I just have a question. Thanks for watching. Where are you tuning in from? Let me know below. Let us rewind. To understand why I stayed dry-eyed, you need to see the slow, agonizing death of our marriage. It did not happen overnight. It was death by 1,000 cuts. It started 6 months ago, on a Tuesday. The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee and the chill of an autumn morning. I was at the island, reviewing a kitchen remodel contract. Mark shuffled in around 10, scratching his stomach in sweatpants. Morning, I said, keeping it light. Coffee is ready, he grunted, pouring a mug without looking at me. Out of creamer, he muttered. I put it on the list, I said. Then I decided to try again. I pulled a small, cream-coloured envelope from my bag. Tickets to a jazz show downtown for Friday. We used to love jazz. Hey, I thought maybe dinner at that Italian spot before the show. Just us, no phones, no talk about the business. Mark stopped stirring. He eyed the envelope like it was a legal subpoena. He walked to the fridge where our color-coded calendar hung. My work in blue, bills in green, social plans in red. He grabbed a thick, red permanent marker. He uncapped it with his teeth. Then, with a squeak that grated on my nerves, he drew a massive, aggressive X through Friday. "Do not plan anything cute," he said, not even turning around. "I am busy." I sat there, the envelope feeling heavy. "Busy? Mark, you have not worked in 2 years. Busy with what?" He spun around, eyes cold. "Stuff, Brenda. I have stuff. I need space to find myself. You are always organizing. It is suffocating. No eye contact. Just the marker scratch and the thud of the fridge door." "I am trying to celebrate us," I said, voice trembling. 25 years, Mark. 25 years of what?" He shot back. "Of you working? Of you being the big boss? You think just because you pay the bills, you own my time? I am not one of your contractors, Brenda. You cannot schedule me." He walked past, grabbing a bagel. "Do not get needy. It is pathetic. If I knew breakfast would be like this, I would have stayed in bed." I watched him leave. The kitchen felt hollow. I looked at the calendar. That red X looked less like a schedule change and more like a target. I came from nothing. My father was a carpenter, a man who smelled of pine and honest sweat. I built my company from a rusty truck and a toolbox. I built this house. I carried Mark when real estate crashed. I carried him through his depression. I carried him when he decided he was too senior for entry-level sales. I had carried him so long I forgot how to stand straight. That morning, staring at the fridge, something clicked. It was not anger yet. It was pure clarity. He did not want to celebrate because, in his mind, there was no us. Just me, the bank account, and him the victim of my success. I shredded the tickets. The tearing paper was our anniversary soundtrack. Later, I saw a notification on our joint account, a charge for a florist, $150. I assumed stupidly that maybe he felt bad. Maybe he bought flowers to apologize. I drove home with a spark of hope. I walked in expecting roses on the island. "Nothing, Mark," I called out. "In the den," he yelled. "Watching football. No flowers. Did you buy anything today?" I asked from the doorway. "Just gas," he said, not looking away. "Why?" Obsessed with money again, I went upstairs. Bedroom was empty. I checked the guest room. Nothing. The charge was real. The flowers were real. They just were not for me. That was the first crack in the foundation. But any builder knows that by the time you see the crack, the structural damage is already done. A week after that, I tried a different approach. Maybe date night pressure was too much. Men can be weird about expectations. Or so I told myself. I decided to cook. Mark loved my pot roast, slow cooked for 8 hours. It was comfort food. It was safe. I left the office early, stopped at the butcher, and spent the afternoon in the kitchen. I wanted the house to feel like a sanctuary when he got home. I was not just the CEO, I was his wife. I set the table with nice candles, nothing too dramatic. I even opened that Cabernet he loves. 6 o'clock passed, then 7. The pot roast was sitting, perfectly warm, in the oven. By 8, I texted him. No reply. At 8:45, the garage door finally rumbled. Relief hit me, followed immediately by dread. Which version of Mark was coming home? The man I married, or the stranger who kept secrets? He walked in, tossed his keys, and did not even look my way. He ignored the table entirely. "Hey," I said, stepping closer. I made roast. He paused, sniffing the air. For a split second, I saw a flicker of hunger, maybe even nostalgia. Then his face went cold. He glanced at the candles and the wine. "I am not hungry," he muttered. "I made your favourite," I said. "It has been cooking all day, Mark." I grabbed a burger with Sam, he lied. I knew it was a lie because he did not smell like grease or onions. He smelled like cheap, cloying perfume. And underneath that floral scent? The sharp sting of gin. "You smell like a bar," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. He spun around, eyes flashing with sudden rage. "Here we go. The interrogation. Cannot a guy have a drink without the 3rd degree? You are suffocating me, Brenda. You are like a prison warden." "I am your wife," I said, fighting back tears. "I cooked. I just wanted to connect." "That is not connection," he snapped, gesturing at the food like it was trash. "That is pressure. You do nice things just to hold them over my head later. Like some saint. Making dinner while I am supposedly out living. I see through your games. My heart was pounding. Games? Mark, I just wanted a meal together. You want control, he sneered. You run the office. You run this house. You want to control what I eat and when. I am not hungry. Throw it out for all I care. He stormed toward the stairs. As he brushed past, that scent hit me again. Lilac and musk. Cheap, but unmistakable. Who were you with? I called out. He stopped on the second step without turning. People who actually appreciate me. People who do not treat me like a total disappointment. I do not treat you like that, I whispered. But the bedroom door slammed shut, shaking the floor. I stood in the silent kitchen. Shadows stretched long. I felt invisible. I call it gaslighting now. Back then, I feared I was losing my mind. He twisted reality until the truth vanished. I dumped our dinner. I was done cooking for a ghost. My husband, reeking of gin, felt like a stranger. I called my friend Sarah. We go back years. She was always the wild one. Sarah had been divorced 5 years from a guy who went broke. We met at a local bistro. I was a wreck, but Sarah looked flawless. You look drained, she cooed, red nails flashing. Is it the firm? Is Mark the problem? I nodded, voice shaking. He is acting like a different person. Angry. Missed our anniversary. She sighed. Oh, Elena, men hit weird phases. It is a midlife crisis, she said, sipping her drink. I need to be honest. You are a lot to handle, she said with a tight smile. That is why we are friends. But Mark feels emasculated. You run the company, you pay the bills. Maybe you are suffocating him. It felt like a slap. So what do I do? Stop working? No. She laughed. Loosen the reins. Let him have secrets. If he spends money, let him. You are rich. I am comfortable because I work 80 hours a week, I corrected her. Exactly, she beamed. Be the fun wife. Then a scent drifted over. Lilac and musk, I froze, the same scent on Mark's jacket. That perfume, I said, heart racing. Is it new? Sarah's smile faltered, but she looked away. Just something cheap. It suits you, I said, brain spinning. Thanks. She checked her watch. Got a run. Real estate showing. She hugged me tight. Back off, Elena. Let Mark breathe. Trust me. I watched her walk away. The woman I trusted told me to ignore his absence. She smelled exactly like the friends Mark was with. I sat there as my coffee went cold. I was walking into a trap, and Sarah was digging the pit. Not a chance. I drove straight to my accountant. Dave, my accountant, lived for tax loopholes. He looked pale when I stormed in. Everything okay? I want to see the personal accounts, I said, sitting down the joint checking, the savings, the card I gave Mark. Dave hesitated. Mark said he was handling the reviews at home. He lied. Pull them up, I commanded. My blood boiled. It was a disaster. This was not a business. It was a hemorrhage. Start explaining, I said, pointing at the screen. $12,000 in cash withdrawals? Mark did not gamble. Where was it going? Dave clicked another tab. Things got darker. $300 steak dinners. Hotel charges in our own zip code. Mark claimed they were for business networking, but he did not even have a business. My stomach turned. Then I saw it. A retainer for a high-end law firm. I realized the truth in a heartbeat. Mark was using our money to fund his exit strategy. He was sleeping around and buying jewelry for a mistress, all while using my paycheck to hire the man who would take me down. I pointed to a $5,000 deposit for a luxury condo. He was moving out. Dave stammered that Mark called it a surprise investment. He manipulated us both. I told Dave to print every single receipt. I needed to see the full scope of this betrayal. I needed a trust account for my niece today, move every liquid asset I could. Dave warned it would drain our joint account, but I did not care. I left that office with proof thick enough to break him. The numbers confirmed it. He was stealing, and he was not alone. The scent of lilac and musk came back to me. Sarah, my gut twisted. This was a conspiracy between my husband and my best friend. I sat in my car, staring ahead. You want a war? You just declared one on the wrong person. The next few days were a blur. I cooked and chatted while he scrolled through his phone. He kept talking about fake leads on a duplex. He was texting her. I checked his truck's odometer. 50 miles a day enough to reach her apartment. Then a thunderstorm hit. He claimed he had a flat tire, but his hands were clean. You do not change a tire in a downpour without getting dirty. I handed him a towel and ran to his truck. The smell of that perfume was thick in the cab. I shined my flashlight on the floor mat. Muddy footprints, small ones. A woman's size 7 boot. I wear a 9. I check the gap between the seat and console. My fingers brushed something sharp. I pulled out a pearl drop earring with a custom setting. I knew this earring. I had bought it for Sarah's birthday. She had lost one in my husband's truck. I sat in that truck while the rain hammered the roof. It was not a hunch anymore. Mark and Sarah, the two people I trusted, were laughing at me while spending my money. I wanted to scream, but I remembered the lawyer's retainer. I could not blow my cover yet. I tucked the earring into my pocket and walked back inside. Mark was at the bottom of the stairs, looking suspicious. I told him I was checking the gutters. I went to fix his tea, watching him smirk at his phone. "Drink up, Mark. You think you are winning, but I just found the evidence to bury you." I did not sleep a wink. I needed a shark, so I drove to that firm first thing. The exact firm Mark had paid a retainer to, but Mark was lazy. He had paid online but had not signed the conflict paperwork. I walked straight to the receptionist. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from the lead attorney. He was sharp, with eyes like a hawk. I slid the bank statements across his desk. Since no official letter existed, he was not Mark's client yet. I smiled. I wanted to hire him before Mark could. We spent hours mapping out our strategy. Every dollar Mark blew on his mistress was marital property he would have to pay back. We were going to claw back every steak dinner and hotel bill from his share. I wanted him out, but my lawyer insisted I needed proof of his volatile behavior. He told me to record the outbursts. Video in my own home was fair game. The trap was set. Now I just had to watch him walk right into it. Get cameras, record his temper. If he threatens you, we file a protective order and call the sheriff. Done. Henderson leaned in. You need a private investigator. You know about the cheating, but you need hard proof. Not just an earring. We need photos, dates, and times. If he is buying property with your cash, we will destroy him in court. He handed me a business card. Hank Miller, private eye. Pricey, but he hits the mark. I met Hank at a diner later. Worn jacket, tired eyes. Husband? He asked. Husband and best friend, I corrected. Hank smirked. The double life. Give me the details. I spilled it all. Mark's habits and secret spots. I need to know their plans, I said. It is not just an affair. They are spending big. I will put a tracker on his car, Hank said. If your name is on the title, it is legal. It is, I said. I paid for that truck. Then we are set. Give me 3 days. You will have a report. Driving home, I felt weirdly calm. For the first time in months, I wasn't scared. I had a team, a sharp lawyer and a pro detective. I hit an electronics shop and bought 3 hidden cameras. I hid them in wall chargers and smoke detectors. Kitchen, living room, hall synced to a secret app. When Mark got home ranting about the heat, I watched from the laundry room. Smile, Mark, you are on camera. 3 days later, Hank called. Meet at the diner. You need to sit for this. My stomach flipped. Knowing is one thing, seeing photos is another. Hank slid an envelope across the table. It is worse than you thought. I opened it. Just Mark and Sarah walking into a motel. His hand on her back. They looked happy. That stung. Like a real couple, not 2 people wrecking my life. Keep going, Hank said. The next batch was from yesterday. Not a motel. A luxury condo downtown. The Heights. They spent 2 hours there with a realtor. She sells property starting at $500,000. A photo on the balcony. Mark pointing like a king, Sarah leaning on him. Then, the kicker. Hank tapped the last photo. A shot through a window. They had papers out. I have a long lens, Hank explained. I squinted. A loan application. Under assets, my business share, our home equity, the retirement fund. He is listing my company as collateral, I whispered. He thinks he owns half of it. He is counting chickens. Hank agreed. But look at the co-borrower, I looked. Sarah Vance. She is on the application. They are not just dating, Elena. They are building a portfolio on your divorce before you even file. Can they do that? I asked. Not legally, Hank said. This is fraud. I stared at the pictures. The betrayal was deeper than the affair. This was theft. Sarah wasn't just stealing my husband, she was helping him carve up my life's work. They were planning a luxury life paid for by my sweat. There is one more thing, Hank said. I have audio. A parabolic mic. Play it, I said. Hank put an earbud in. I heard the wind, then Mark's voice, clear as day. Don't worry, babe. The old hag is clueless. She is so desperate to keep me. She is cooking dinners. I will string her along until the bonus hits. Then I file. We take the cash, and she will be working until she is 80 to pay my alimony. Sarah laughed. You are so smart. That's Snake. I pulled out my earbud, cold calm replacing the shock. Pure, distilled hate. You good? Hank asked. I am better than good, I said. I have everything. What's the play? Hank asked. I stood up. He wants to play me for a fool? Fine. I let him walk off the cliff he built. I paid Hank and drove home picturing his greedy face. You want a show, Mark? You got it! I walked inside. He was on the couch. Hey, he grunted. Hey, honey, I said, forcing a smile. I've been thinking. You were right. I've been too controlling. Let's talk about giving you more investment access. Mark sat up, eyes gleaming. Really, really, I lied. Let us talk over dinner. The trap was set. Now I just waited for him to bite. For 2 weeks, I played a part. My stage was the kitchen. My audience was a cheating husband who thought he was a genius. Hearing him plot to burn through my cash, the hurt vanished. All that remained was cold, sharp precision. I looked at Mark and didn't see the man I'd loved. For 2 decades, I saw a parasite. You don't negotiate with parasites, you remove them. I started Tuesday with a bottle of top-shelf bourbon, the kind he loved, but I never bought. What is this? Mark asked, texting. Probably the girl, a peace offering, I said. I've been thinking about what you said about feeling trapped. He put his phone down. And I think you're right, I lied. It tasted like ash, but I smiled. I've been so focused on my startup, I forgot to let you lead. His chest puffed out. It was pathetic how easily he fell for it. Well, I've been saying that for years, Brenda. Real estate is finally bouncing back. Exactly, I said. You need capital. You can ask me for permission for every client dinner. I reached into my bag and pulled out a sleek black envelope. I spoke to the bank. I authorized a secondary card on my business credit line, $50,000 limit. It S for investment opportunities. I handed it over. Mark looked at the card like it was solid gold. He was already seeing his freedom. Brenda, this is a big step, he said, trying to sound solemn while a smirk twitched. I appreciate you finally trusting me. I do, I said. I trust you to hang yourself with the rope I just handed you. But, Mark, there is one catch. It is a new account, so fraud protection is tight. If you make a big purchase, give me a heads up to clear it on the app. Otherwise it might decline. Sure. He waved his hand. Sure. Business, I agreed. That night I heard him calling from the garage. I checked my hidden feed. Mark whispered, Babe, you won't believe it. The old lady just gave me a $50,000 credit line. She basically paid me to leave. We can put the deposit on that luxury condo next week. She's clueless. It is too easy. I watched him pace, drunk on his own ego. He thought he was the predator. He had no idea that card was just bait. He'd already swallowed the hook. I played along for 10 more days. I cooked his favorites, stopped questioning the late nights. When he smelled like cheap perfume, I said nothing. I just asked if he closed the deal. Almost, he'd wink. Every time he gave me that smug look, I added another 0 to the divorce settlement. Acting like a doormat takes a toll, but my attorney helped me stay grounded. We were building a case. Every text, every charge, every lie, it all went into the file. Mark thought he was launching a strike. He was actually marching into an ambush. Just a few more days, I told my reflection. Keep it together. The ending will be perfect. While Mark window shopped for his new love nest, I executed a financial move that would stun a pro. Divorce is about liquidity. Cash is king. Mark had access to our $80,000 joint account, our emergency fund. If he filed first, a judge would freeze it. Or worse, he'd drain it, and I'd spend years fighting for a cent. I refused to let that happen. I met with my accountant and my lawyer early Monday. The trust, I asked, is it ready? The family trust is active. My lawyer nodded. It's an irrevocable trust for your niece's education. Perfectly legal. You read the trustee. Good, I said. Move $75,000 from the joint account into the trust. Today, my accountant looked nervous. Sarah, that leaves $5,000. Mark will notice that the plan, I said. I want that money gone. If he asks, I say a S in a high-yield bond for taxes. He's clueless about money. He'll fall for it. The limit, my lawyer asked. 50 grand? I grinned. That's the best part. It's a sub-account on my corporate line. I can kill it from my phone instantly. You gave him a card that works until you say stop? My lawyer chuckled. Brutal. Necessary, I corrected. He is using that card for the condo deposit this Friday. I saw the invite on his tablet. Friday, my lawyer mused. 3 days out. I need the restraining order ready for Friday morning, I said. I have footage of him snapping a chair and threatening arson. Is it enough? My lawyer reviewed the file, with the audio of his fraud plans and the threat video. In this county? Yes, it is enough for an emergency order. We see the judge without him. He signs it, the sheriff serves him, and he has 10 minutes to pack before he is out. Perfect, I said. I left the office and checked my banking app. Transfer complete. The account Mark thought was his personal slush fund was empty. Funds were safe in the trust. When I got home, Mark was in high spirits, humming in the kitchen. Hey, hon, he chirped. See the market? Up 50 points. Didn't notice, I said. Dropping my keys. Mark, I moved some cash for tax reasons. Balance looks low, but don't panic. It's invested. He froze, panic hitting his eyes. Moved? Where? How much? Most of it, I said casually, opening the fridge. Accountant said we had to offset business gains. It's locked for 6 months. But you have that credit card, right? We re-fined for daily costs. Relief washed over him. He actually sighed. Oh, okay. Yeah, the card. Fine. Smart move, babe. Investing is smart. He didn't care about the cash because he thought he had the magic plastic. He thought that card was his golden ticket. He didn't realize I had severed his artery and handed him a tourniquet I could tighten whenever I wanted. By the way, he said, chewing, guys have a thing Friday. Celebrating a friend's birthday. I might be late. Friday, I repeated. Sure, have fun. I knew it wasn't a birthday. Friday was the condo closing. He planned to sign, swipe my card, and serve me papers over the weekend. I will, he grinned. It's a big day. Yes, I agreed, eyeing the knife block. It certainly is. He had no idea that while he planned a celebration, I was planning an eviction. 2 days out, we had one final public performance. Our neighbours, the Millers, hosted a summer barbecue. Classic stuff. Burgers, beer, gossip. Usually Mark skipped these, but this year he insisted we attend. We should show our faces, he said, adjusting his polo. Look like the happy couple. Keep up appearances, right? He wanted witnesses. He wanted people to see us normal so when he blindsided me he could claim I just snapped. We arrived at 2. The party was loud, and standing by the cooler holding a drink was his mistress, of course. She lived 3 streets over, wearing a dress way too tight for a family event. Sarah Mark. She waved, her voice grating. We walked over. Mark grabbed a beer and stood too close to her. Hey, Chloe, I said, sliding on my sunglasses to hide my disgust. Great turnout, Mark said, projecting. Man, it's good to relax. Sarah here's been working me to the bone, right, honey? He draped a heavy arm around my shoulder. Felt like a chain. We all work hard, Mark, I said stiffly. Oh, come on, he laughed, jostling me. Slave driver. You know, Chloe? I keep telling her to retire. Look at her, stressed. The wrinkles are showing. The nearby group went quiet. A cruel, mean-spirited joke. Chloe giggled. Stop, Mark. Sarah looks distinguished. Besides, at our age, we can all be 25. She preened, smoothing her dress, implying she was the exception. Speak for yourself, Mark winked. I feel 25. Second wind coming. Big changes on the horizon. He raised his beer to new chapters. And upgrading. The neighbours exchanged awkward glances. They sensed it, the disrespect, the weird vibe between Mark and Chloe. I stood there, skin burning in the heat. Mark was flaunting his new life right in front of me, like he was toasting to his own affair. Really? Testing me? With what money, Mark? I asked. The room went dead silent. His smirk dropped. He claimed he had resources I didn't know about. I just gave him a look. Chloe tried to pivot, talking about lake house renovations. I told her I was planning to tear it down. Sometimes, I said, the foundation is just rotten. When that happens, you don't patch it, you bulldoze it. Her face went pale. She finally saw the cold, hard reality in my eyes. I splashed water on my face, feeling every ounce of my exhaustion. 2 more days, that's all I needed. Out in the hallway, Mark and his mistress were huddled in a corner, sweating. Good. I snuck into his home office later that evening. His tablet was unlocked. Emails showed a closing date for a luxury condo on Friday, $45,000 due, and a draft to a law firm. The goal? Full custody of my golden retriever, Buster. That dog was my heart. He kicked Buster out for shedding, then tried to take him to spite me? That was war! I deleted the draft so he wouldn't suspect a thing. I packed a bag for Buster and tucked it into my trunk. Friday morning felt thick with tension. I wore my sharpest navy suit, my armor. Mark was jittery, smelling of cheap cologne. He thought he was heading to a big life transition. I just smiled. Huge day, I told him. Lots of loose ends to cut. He patted his pocket, right where my black credit card, his bait, was sitting. He drove off, whistling. He thought he was headed toward freedom. I pulled out my phone. Time to execute. I called the locksmith, then the alarm company. My house became a hive of activity. Tony the locksmith swapped out the deadbolts while I purged the place. I grabbed heavy-duty bags and swept his entire life off the racks. His clothes, his shoes, his useless hobbies. Everything went to the curb. It looked like trash day, but it was a fresh start. By lunch, my lawyer called with the news. The emergency protection order was signed. The sheriff was on standby. If Mark stepped onto the property, he was going straight to jail. I wanted him to see the change. At noon, he burned through $200 on drinks at a pub. Liquid courage. At 1:55, the video call hit. I breathed steady and answered. The screen was deafening, a bar full of his pals, Amber smirking, and Mark looking like a winner. He bragged about the divorce, thought he was taking half my life. My voice cut through the noise like ice. Before you sign anything, Mark, listen. The bar went quiet. He tried to play it cool, but I cut him off. I greeted his mistress, Chloe, on camera. She froze. I told her she was about to put a down payment on a condo using my credit card. Mark claimed it was his. I laughed. It was my business account. I reported it stolen 5 minutes ago. I clicked the button to lock it. Spending $45,000 on a stolen card is a felony. His face turned grey. Don't bother coming home. Locks changed. Restraining order active. Happy anniversary. Mark stared, a pretzel frozen in his mouth. His arrogance vanished into pure panic. Chloe grabbed him, screaming about the card and the closing deadline. He looked like a rat trapped in a maze. He tried to tell me I was joking, that it was our investment. I corrected him. It was my money, and I was cutting a bad asset. He threatened to call the judge, but I urged him to bring up the fraud. I had it all on video, every threat. Chloe pulled away, seeing the money was gone. She wasn't looking at a wealthy man anymore, just a broke, desperate guy headed for trouble. She hissed at him to fix the payment. He grabbed the waiter, demanding he run the tab again. The waiter swiped, frowned, and swiped again. Declined. He kept the card. Mark lunged, but the waiter shut him down. He turned to Chloe, begging for help. She looked at him with pure contempt. She didn't care about the condo anymore. He tried to plead, but I was done. Chloe grabbed her purse, furious. She realized he was flat broke and refused to go down with his sinking ship. She walked out. Mark turned back to the phone, begging for my love. I just laughed. You don't love me, you love my bank account, and that is gone. I hung up, warning him to stay away. The police were coming. The house was quiet, and for the first time in years, I could finally breathe. Our realtor told me the rest later. After Chloe ditched him, he chased her to the high-rise, smelling like whiskey and panic. He slammed his hand on the desk, insisting they run the joint account instead. The one I had emptied days ago. Sarah checked the balance. $4,000. Mark screamed, insisting there was $80,000. Sarah just looked at him and said it had been gone since Monday. Mark turned white. He finally realized I had not just cancelled a card. I had scorched the earth beneath his feet. A notification hit Chloe's phone. The word was out. Mark was broke. She didn't even yell. She just called him a loser and left for good. Back home, the sun was setting. I watched from the curtains. A taxi pulled up. Mark stomped out, staring at the house. His house. No, my house. He saw the 6 black trash bags lined up on the curb like soldiers. He kicked one, spilling a shoe. He just stood there, staring at the front door, looking completely defeated. He stormed up the steps, face purple. He shoved his key in nothing. He slammed his shoulder into the wood, but the deadbolt held. He screamed that he lived there. I stayed silent. He grabbed a patio chair, ready to smash the glass. I tapped my screen. "Police," I said. "My ex is trying to break in. I have a protective order." Dispatch confirmed help was coming. Neighbours were watching the king of the castle have a total breakdown. He threw the chair, watched it bounce off the brick, and collapsed. Blue lights flashed. I sipped my tea. Perfection. Mark kept pounding. "Let me in, it is mine," an officer shouted. "Step away," Mark spun wild-eyed. "She changed the locks. That is illegal. Are you Mark?" "Yes, I am the victim." The deputy walked up, holding a paper. "We have a judge-signed order from this morning. Vacate these premises immediately and stay 500 feet from me." "That is a lie," Mark screamed, pointing at my window. "She is crazy! Put your hands behind your back." The deputy ordered. "For what?" "Disorderly conduct and breaking and entering. You are under arrest." The metal clicked. The most satisfying sound ever. They dragged him away as he shouted. He passed the trash bags. "My expensive suits," he yelled. "We will collect your things later," the officer said, shoving him into the cruiser. I stepped onto the porch as the car drove off. The evening was quiet. Neighbours waved. I waved back, not embarrassed, liberated. I checked the bags on the curb. I wanted him to have his things, nothing more. My phone rang. My lawyer, Henderson. "Did it go through?" he asked. "He is in the cruiser," I replied. "Good," he said. "That seals the violation. I will have his attorney collect his belongings from storage. Do not keep them on the curb. It looks bad for the court," he warned. "I will move them tomorrow," I said. Henderson paused. "You did good, Brenda. Most people fold." "I folded for 25 years, Arthur," I told him. "I am done folding." That night the house felt clean. No smell of booze or resentment, just lemon polish and peace. I slept in the king bed. My dog Buddy curled up at my feet. Mark always hated that. "Your bed now, Buddy," I whispered. The fallout began the next morning. Mark called from jail. I did not pick up. He left a voicemail. "Brenda, please, I am sorry. Bail me out. Chloe is gone. Mom is in Florida. I love you." I saved the message not to listen, but as evidence. Evidence of his cycle. Abuse, discard, regret, hover. A perfect, toxic pattern. And I was finished with his drama. I called the storage company. I prepaid 1 month. After that, they could auction it. I hired some kids to haul the bags away and texted the code to Mark. "Unit 4B, code 1234. Good luck." Then I blocked him. The legal battle was just a systematic dismantling. Mark tried for a fancy lawyer, but lawyers need cash, and Mark had none. His cards were gone, the accounts empty. He ended up with a court-appointed mediator. We met 3 weeks later. Mark looked terrible. Wrinkled suit, gaunt face. He could not even look me in the eye. Henderson laid it all out. The claim for wasted assets was our winning hand. My attorney told the mediator Mr. Miller spent $40,000 of our savings on his mistress, Sarah, over 6 months. We had receipts for luxury hotels, jewelry, fine dining, and vacations. Illinois law mandates that money be returned to the estate before any split. The mediator scanned the proof, then turned to Mark. "Is this true?" Mark stammered, claiming we were mentally separated. The mediator snapped, "The marriage ends when a judge says it does. You owe the estate $40,000. Next came the business valuation. Mark demanded half of my design firm. I helped build that, Mark argued. I gave her advice. Henderson cut him off. "We have tax returns showing 0 financial input from you. We have sworn statements from my staff saying you never worked a day. And we have recordings of you plotting to ruin the company. No judge will hand you shares in a business you tried to sabotage." Mark collapsed, watching his imaginary payout vanish. The final settlement was brutal for him. I kept the house. I kept 100% of my company. I kept my retirement and the trust. Mark got his truck, which I paid off just to be rid of the loan, his clothes, and a $20,000 cash payout. That was his share of the home equity minus the $40,000 he blew on Sarah and the legal bills he caused. $20,000. That was his total after 25 years. It would barely cover a year of rent. That is not fair. Mark cried. "Fair?" I looked up. Fair would be paying for the years I spent supporting a man who resented my success. "This is not fair, Mark. This is mercy. Sign." His hand shook as he signed. Leaving the courthouse, Mark tried to corner me one last time. Brenda, what do I do now? Where do I go? You are a man of vision, Mark, I said, throwing his own words back at him. I am sure you have big ideas waiting. I put on my shades and walked to my car without looking back. You might wonder about the lovebirds. Karma is real. It is a boomerang, and when you throw it hard enough, it comes back fast. Sarah did not just lose Mark. She lost her social status. Reputation is everything in these suburbs. Once everyone found out Sarah tried to fleece a friend and wound up with a broke, homeless bum, her social life vanished. Kicked out of her clubs, shunned at galas, even ignored by local agents. She was toxic. 2 months later she begged to meet, swearing Mark played her too. I did not block her immediately. I just sent one photo, a mountain of trash bags on the curb, told her that is where garbage goes, then slammed the door on her for good. Rumor has it she crawled back to her sister in rural Wisconsin. Good riddance. As for Mark, he burned through that $20,000 in 90 days. Tried launching a consulting business, but failed because he has zero actual talent. Rent went unpaid. He ended up right where he belonged, his mother's basement. His mom, who used to insult my housekeeping, was suddenly stuck raising a 55-year-old man who just played video games and whined. I ran into him 6 months later at the market. He looked worn out in a stained tee, clutching frozen pizza and cheap beer. He was actually yelling at the cashier about an expired coupon. I could have mocked him. I could have made a scene. Instead, I just moved to the next lane. Not worth my time. A total stranger. A year after the split, my house finally feels like home. I ripped out that kitchen wall, the reno I wanted when he dropped his bombshell. It is open, airy, and bright. I painted the walls sage, got new linens, and bought myself a sharp ride. My firm just had a record year. Without Mark dragging me down, my business soared. We just landed the city library redesign, but the real shift is internal. I used to fear being alone. I dreaded an empty seat at the table. Now that seat is pure peace, a life without the lies, the greed, and the constant belittling. I joined a hiking club and started pottery on Thursdays. My hands are finally covered in clay, not stressful bank statements. Last week, I met someone on the trail. His name is Julian, a retired teacher. He asked for coffee, just looking for real talk, no games, no pressure. We split the bill. It felt more romantic than anything I have felt in ages. I have no idea where this goes, and I do not care. For the first time, I am whole on my own. I am in the backyard now, writing this. My dog is chasing butterflies by the flowers. The sun is setting over the life I fought to reclaim. If you feel that knot in your gut or find yourself walking on eggshells, trust your gut. Check your finances and never hesitate to change the locks. You are the architect of your own world. Do not let anyone else write your narrative. Thanks for listening. If you like this story of justice, please share it. Stay tough, and remember, the best revenge is a life lived well. Looking back, this is more than just coming out on top after a betrayal. It is a powerful awakening of self-worth. It shows kindness should never be mistaken for weakness, and sometimes silence is the ultimate way to take your power back. Real dignity is not about never failing. It is the grit to stand tall, shake off the mess, and demand the respect you earned. We teach people how to treat us by what we put up with. Let this prove that you own your own happiness, and it is never too late to ditch the toxic people and build a future that honors your soul. If you found this story on resilience helpful, please leave a comment below. We appreciate you watching and look forward to the next story.